Conquerors Haki is one of the most intriguing and least understood powers in all of One Piece. This Haki is exclusive to those with the potential to be kings, conquerors, and the rulers of their generation. It's a willpower that is so potent that it can make lesser men collapse, rendering them unconscious under the overwhelming might of a stronger opponent. As the series has progressed, Conquerors Haki has become increasingly relevant, with more of Luffy's major opponents now possessing it in some form. This ability itself has evolved, transcending its initial function of simply knocking out or intimidating the weakest of opponents. Now it can be harnessed to make attacks incomparably powerful. We have seen Shanks, Whitebeard, Roger, Kaido, and even Luffy split the heavens themselves with the sheer force of their attacks. Possessing Conquerors Haki instantly ranks you among the major players in the world, marking you as one of the most powerful or potentially powerful individuals sailing the seas. Now this does beg the question as to who possesses Conquerors Haki. So far we've only seen 20 characters who have demonstrated this power. Now there are some individuals who I'm not going to be including, and this may surprise you. While Oda excels at a lot of things, explicitly showing someone wielding Conquerors Haki isn't one of them. To address this, at the end of the video, I'm going to go over all of the characters who are widely assumed to possess this form of Haki, but have never been explicitly shown or stated to do so. Without any further delay, let's start with the person who is likely the weakest Conquerors Haki user ever shown in the series. So this is one of the two filler characters who have made it on this list, and it's the pirate Naguri. Naguri was an old retired pirate living in Great Terminal 12 years before the current timeline. This is where he had encountered a young Ace, Sabo, and Luffy. He used his Conquerors Haki to intimidate and successfully calm a giant bear that the younger boys were unable to defeat. Although we know relatively little about Naguri's life, we do know that he was a former captain who once fought Goldie Roger and was subsequently defeated, leading to the disbandment of his crew. During the filler arc, he trains Luffy to become a stronger fighter, eventually endearing himself to the boys and even learning of Ace's relation to Roger. After seeing the trio successfully defeat the Great Tiger on Dawn Island, Naguri decides to set sail once again in order to reunite with his former crew. Scaling Naguri's strength is challenging given the limited information that we have about him, since he once had fought Roger, and we can assume that his crew had sailed throughout the Grand Line, possibly even into the New World. However, there is no guarantee of any strength here, as even weaker crews can make it to the New World, though they typically don't last very long there. Considering his advanced age and the likelihood that he wasn't a powerhouse even in his prime, Naguri would undoubtedly be defeated by everyone else on this list. Next we have Don Chinjao of the Hapo Navy. Though this character was mainly relevant during the Dressrosa arc, Chinjao was an incredibly fierce fighter in his prime. He had battled Prime Monkey D. Garp, which ended in his defeat. Garp's statement that he had destroyed 8 mountains with his bare hands in preparation for fighting Chinjao indicates the considerable strength that he had possessed. Given his prestigious past and his command of the Hapo Navy and established power in the New World, it makes sense that Chinjao was a Conquerors Haki user. However, his defeat at Luffy's hands without Luffy needing to use Gear 4 demonstrates that Chinjao has significantly weakened compared to his prime. While he is still strong overall, he doesn't quite measure up to the other Conquerors Haki users on this list. The next individual is somebody whose possession of Conquerors Haki has always surprised me. This of course is Eustace Captain Kidd. Although we never actually see Kidd using Conquerors Haki outside of filler scenes in the anime, it is confirmed by Kaido himself that Kidd does indeed possess this ability. Kidd's fearless nature, evident throughout his appearances, may contribute to his possession of this ability, although it has often been to his detriment. His complete and utter defeats at the hands of both Kaido and Shanks demonstrate that while Kidd may have Conquerors Haki, he is still far from being the strongest even with it. Whether Kidd will reappear in the series, returning from yet another crushing defeat to become stronger is anyone's guess. Based on what we've seen so far, he likely ranks amongst the weakest users of Conquerors Haki in One Piece. Next, we dive into one of the most notorious warlords, Don Quixote Doflamingo. He just so happens to hold the unofficial One Piece record for being the youngest known user of Conquerors Haki. At just 8 years old, Doflamingo demonstrated his formidable Haki by intimidating and knocking out a mob of angry peasants who had tortured and attempted to lynch him and his family. This life or death situation triggered the awakening of his Conquerors Haki. Doflamingo's character has always been one which has the ambition that you would associate with a king. He was born as a celestial dragon and he had believed in his superiority over others. Even after being relegated to the status of common folk, his drive never wavered. He had murdered his own father in a bid to return to Merijo, killed his brother for betrayal, manipulated law to become one of his pawns, and he had blackmailed the world government in order to regain some of his lost status. Despite starting with everything, he had built himself up from nearly nothing in order to become one of the most feared pirates on the seas and a significant power in the underground. Although he had never reached the highest echelons of power, as he had feared the likes of Kaido and he was unable to surpass the strength of admirals, as it had taken multiple rounds of Luffy's Gear Forth in order to finally defeat him. This alone highlights his incredible strength and resilience. Now, following Doflamingo, we have a pirate who had given Luffy one of his toughest fights in the New World. I am of course talking about Charlotte Katakuri. As one of Big Mom's 3 sweet commanders, Katakuri was widely regarded as the strongest member of Big Mom's crew, aside from Big Mom herself. His exceptional observation haki, which had allowed him to see into the future, was a significant challenge for Luffy to overcome, as he had never encountered such a formidable ability before. Additionally, Katakuri's Conquerors Haki was on par with Luffy's. Now, in terms of strength, Katakuri ranks amongst the strongest characters in the series outside of the Yonko and Admirals. He is one of the few confirmed users of Future Sight alongside Luffy, Shanks and Kaido. He also possesses an awakened devil fruit, and he was only really defeated after he ended up wounding himself just to make sure that he would have a fair fight against Luffy's Gear Forth. This level of strength and honor makes him a formidable opponent that very few could match in One Piece. While Katakuri may not reach the very peak of this list, his strength, abilities and the respect that he commands places him just one step away from the top. Next on the list is the Empress of Amazon Lily, Boa Hancock. Despite never explicitly using Conqueror's Haki in the manga, both Boa Sandersonia and Hancock herself have been confirmed to wield it. She also showcases this power in the One Piece game One Piece Burning Blood and One Piece Pirate Warriors 4. Assessing Hancock's strength is somewhat challenging, because theoretically even someone as powerful as Goldie Roger could be defeated by Hancock if they fall victim to her irresistible beauty. However, without relying on that advantage, we have seen Hancock face defeat at the hands of Blackbeard. Given that we haven't seen her win a significant fight against a formidable opponent, it makes sense to rank her somewhere in the middle of this list. She certainly is not the weakest, but she certainly does not rank amongst the strongest Conquerors Haki users. Next up is the most recent addition to the list of Conquerors Haki users, and it's the only other member of the Straw Hat crew aside from Luffy to possess this ability, as it's Luffy's first crewmate and right-hand man, Roronoa Zoro. For the longest time, it was assumed that Zoro would eventually develop Conquerors Haki, given his likely status as the first mate of the future Pirate King, similar to Silver's Rayleigh, the right-hand man of the previous Pirate King Goldie Roger. This assumption has finally been confirmed during the Wano arc, when Zoro had used a Conqueror's Haki infused attack in order to scar Kaido. This is a feat that only Kozuki Oden had previously accomplished. Kaido, much to his shock, had confirmed that Zoro indeed possesses Conqueror's Haki, something that even Zoro himself was unaware of. Despite being a novice in using Conqueror's Haki, Zoro can already infuse it into his attacks, demonstrating his remarkable potential. Before this revelation, Zoro was already considered to be the second strongest member of the Yonko crew. Now that he possesses Conqueror's Haki, his strength is poised to improve further as he masters its use. This is a crucial step towards achieving his dream of surpassing Dracul Mihawk. Next up is one of my favorite characters in the entire series, it's Podcast D Ace. Confirmation of Ace's Haki abilities is scattered across 3 sources. These are the manga itself, the novelization of Ace's story, and lastly the manga adaptation of that novel. Ace had awakened his Conquerors Haki at the young age of 10 during his and Luffy's fight against the Blue Jam pirates amidst the burning of Grey Terminal. Faced with the imminent threat of Luffy's death, Ace subconsciously activated his Conquerors Haki, knocking out all of the pirates in the vicinity except for Blue Jam himself. We see more instances of Ace using Conquerors Haki throughout the manga, where he utilizes it intentionally and to great effect against his opponents. Ranking Ace in terms of strength is very difficult, and it's a topic that I plan to discuss in a separate video. The manga dedicated to Ace's story had demonstrated that he was capable of using Future Sight, an ability that very few pirates possess. He was also revealed to be a highly skilled armament Haki user. While Ace faced several defeats throughout the series, these losses only came at the hands of formidable opponents like Blackbeard, who has the Yami Yami no Mi, and then Akainu during the Marineford War, and then Whitebeard himself. On the other hand, Ace had managed to defeat Jinbei at just 17 years old, and he had overcome Marine Vice Admiral Draw. Given all of this and his status as the second commander of the Whitebeard pirates, it is reasonable to assume that Ace was approximately as strong as a Yonko's right-hand man, putting him on par with the likes of Mako, Katakuri, and King. Ace's possession of Conqueror's Haki might have given him an advantage over them in a one-on-one fight. If it had ever been confirmed that Ace could infuse his Conqueror's Haki into his attacks, he likely would have stood as the strongest right-hand man alongside Ben Beckman. Unfortunately, none of this prevented Ace's light from being extinguished early during the Marineford War, and with it, any chance of him fulfilling his monumental potential. Therefore, we can only rank Ace here on this list, as he is still one step below the very strongest characters in the series. One of the surprisingly few Marines to make it onto this list is the former Fleet Admiral himself, Sengoku the Buddha. There's remarkably little to say about his use of Conqueror's Haki, as we never actually see him use it in the series, given that he was a former admiral from the Pirate King's era, rising through the marine ranks alongside Garp and Suru until he had reached the highest possible position. It's not too shocking to hear that he possesses Conqueror's Haki. However, simply knowing that he possesses it is all that we have gotten so far, as Oda confirmed that Sengoku wielded all forms of Haki in Weaver Card 265. This makes him the only character in the series confirmed to have Haki but never shown using it in any form of One Piece media. While his strength was significant over 20 years ago, the effects of age have likely weakened Sengoku, especially given how rapidly he appears to have aged since the end of the Marineford War. While still undoubtedly a top-tier fighter, he finds himself squarely in the middle of this list of Conquerors Haki users. Now, continuing with the older generation, next up we have the Pirate King's right-hand man, the Dark King Silvers Rayleigh. This is the man who had taught Luffy, and by extension the reader, everything that they had needed to know about the basics of Haki. We at first seen Rayleigh utilize his Conqueror's Haki in the slave auction house in Sabodi, before he had again demonstrated it on Rusukaina while training Luffy. Given that Rayleigh was once the first mate of the Pirate King himself, it is unsurprising to know that he possesses Conqueror's Haki, and even in the modern day his reputation is enough to scare off the likes of Blackbeard. Of course, age is not a factor that can be ignored within One Piece, as we've seen both Garp and Whitebeard acknowledge that the years have sapped some of their strength, and it's likely the same case for Rayleigh. While he had managed to intimidate Blackbeard away from his assault on Amazon Lily, Rayleigh openly stated that he was unsure if he would have been able to beat the Yonko, which is something that he would have easily been able to do in his prime. Regardless, someone strong enough to hold off Kizaru and make Blackbeard think twice is not a person to be taken lightly, and this is the reason why he ranks ranks in this position on this list. Next, we have another filler character who possesses Conquerors Haki, and it's the main antagonist of the movie One Piece Stampede. It's the demon heir Douglas Bullet. Bullet spent his entire life fighting, having been born in the country of Galsburg. He had quickly become a child soldier in the country's army, the Gals Force. By the age of 9, he had already become one of the strongest soldiers in the army, and at age 14, his overwhelming strength and achievements had brought the war to a close. After being betrayed by his country and destroying it in response, Bullet set out to become a pirate. He eventually encountered Goldie Roger, who became the first person ever to defeat him, leading a young Bullet to join his crew. Although Bullet never managed to defeat Roger, he became unbelievably powerful in his own right. After the death of Roger, Bullet embarked on a crusade of destruction that only ended when he was ambushed by a Buster Call, which was led by Sengoku and Monkey D. Garp. In the movie's plot, Bullet re-emerges and escapes from Impel Down, eventually being defeated by Luffy, Kid, and a selection of other pirates and marines on the island. His presence in the movie is one of the most impressive from any non-canon One Piece antagonist, with his Conquerors Haki surpassing even Luffy's. Scaling Bullet's character is challenging because apart from Goldie Roger, nobody has ever defeated him one-on-one. The combination of Sengoku and Garp in their prime would likely be enough to defeat most Yonko. However, pre-Gear 5 Luffy and Kid are far less impressive, being unable to defeat the likes of Kaido even with additional help. I believe that Bullet is best placed slightly below any Yonko, but slightly above Yonko commanders, existing somewhere in the admittedly considerable gap between the two of them. Now next, also finding their way into this blurry divide between Yonko and their commanders, we have Yamato, the son of Kaido. Yamato is a member of the Oni race and now one of the main strengths of Wano country. Yamato stands as one of the strongest pirates in the world who also wields Conquerors Haki. Given that Yamato dedicated their life to emulating Kozuki Oden, it's no surprise that they also possess Conquerors Haki similar to Oden himself. Yamato awakened their Conquerors Haki at only 8 years old, running wild through Onigashima, attacking Kaido's subordinates. Now fast forward to the current day, and Yamato is one of the few people capable of infusing Conquerors Haki into their attacks and using it against both Kaido and Admiral Ryugokyu during the failed attack on Wano, mixing the blood of Kaido with the spirit of Kozuki Oden and amplifying it with a mythical Zoan Devil Fruit catapults Yamato to being one of the strongest characters in One Piece, someone who is easily capable of fighting one-on-one with the strongest creature in the world. While Yamato may not yet be at the point of defeating Yonko, they are without a doubt strong enough to be brought up in discussions alongside them. Next, we have Kozuki Oden, a legendary figure who served as a crewmate to both the Pirate King Goldie Roger and the strongest man in the world, Whitebeard. As the heir to the Wano throne, the conqueror of the lawless region of Kuri, and the leader of the 9 Red Scabbards, Oden had inspired awe and respect from nearly everyone that he had encountered. His ambitions extended beyond these remarkable achievements, as he had sought to explore the world outside of Wano and eventually open the country's borders, which had been closed for centuries. Given his extraordinary background, it is unsurprising that Oden possessed Conquerors Haki. His strength was equally formidable, as he had faced Prime Whitebeard on equal footing, an accomplishment that very few could match, and he was able to withstand an attack from Goldie Roger, remaining standing after it. The mere fact that Oden earned the attention and respect of these legendary figures speaks volumes about the strength that he possesses. Oden's power was further demonstrated in his epic showdown against Kaido, where he had inflicted the only scar on Kaido's body for the longest time. Considering that it had taken Zoro in the present day to wield the same sword as Oden and infusing it with Conquerors Haki in order to replicate this feat, it's evident that Oden was capable of infusing his attacks with Conquerors Haki, which is a rare ability amongst Haki users. The fate of Oden may have been tragic, as his defeat was brought about by deception, but this does not diminish the fact that he was one of the strongest pirates of his age. Moving on to the first Yonko on this list, we have Big Mom. Being a Yonko and possessing Conquerors Haki often go hand in hand. In order to reach the status of an Emperor of the Seas, it requires an unbreakable spirit, unshakable determination, and incomparable ambition. And these are traits that Big Mom possesses in abundance. We had witnessed her terrifying presence during the Whole Cake Island arc, where the sheer undirected pressure of her Conquerors Haki had nearly overwhelmed everyone at the party. The Straw Hats, Luffy, Capone Beji, and even her own children including Katakuri were pushed back by the overwhelming might of her will. During the Wano arc, Big Mom's performance was somewhat disappointing, but she still had impressive moments. Notably, her reintroduction into the story with Kaido had highlighted her fighting equally against the strongest creature in the world until they had decided to make a truce and ally with one another. In the end, Big Mom fell to the combined might of Trafalgar Law and Captain Kidd. However, in a one-on-one fight, it is widely believed that she would have easily been able to defeat either of them. Despite her prestigious status and strength as a Yonko, she has shown the least among those confirmed to possess Conquerors Haki with the rank of Yonko. When discussing the strongest character in One Piece, it's impossible to overlook the King of Beasts Kaido. Known as the strongest creature in the world, Kaido exemplifies the power and fearsome nature of Conquerors Haki. As mentioned earlier, Conquerors Haki and the Yonko status go hand in hand. It's becoming increasingly clear that to be among the world's elite, possessing Conquerors Haki is almost mandatory, with infused attacks being essential in top-tier battles. Kaido's Haki combined with his nearly invincible body made him one of the most formidable pirates in the New World. During the Wano arc, Kaido fought against the Red Scabbards, Luffy, Law, Kid, Killer, Zoro, and Yamato without ever appearing to be on the losing side. Ultimately, it had taken the awakening of a legendary devil fruit and a massive blow capable of engulfing an entire island in order to bring Kaido down, and even then his fate does remain to be uncertain. Although we don't know the exact moment that Kaido had first displayed Conquerors Haki, we do know that it had played a crucial role in his rise to becoming one of the strongest pirates to ever sail the seas. We now finally turn to the man that many of you have been waiting for me to speak about. It's Monkey D. Luffy, the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy is destined to be the future pirate king, and he has a remarkable lineage and legacy. He is the son of the world's most wanted man, the grandson of the marine hero, the brother of Ace and Sabo, the protege of Redhead Shanks, and most importantly, the main character of the series. Throughout One Piece, we've witnessed numerous instances of Luffy's incredible will, dating all the way back to the East Blue Saga. His refusal to submit to Arlong and Dong Creek, his determination in climbing Drum Rock with his bare hands in freezing conditions while carrying Nami and Sanji, and his steadfast resolve in not fighting back against Sanji during the events of the Whole Cake Island arc all highlight Luffy's unbreakable convictions. Luffy embodies the traits of a king who you would expect to wield Conquerors Haki, especially through the fact that Luffy now rather unwillingly is at the head of a grand fleet which consists of over 5,000 pirates. We have seen more examples of Luffy utilizing Conquerors Haki than any other character in the series. From the first time that he uses the ability on Sabodi Archipelago against Motobaro to his epic awakening during the Marineford War, and through the 2-year time skip to knocking out 50,000 pirates during the Fishman Island arc. Luffy's Conquerors Haki has grown from a fledgling ability to one of the mightiest examples of Conquerors Haki on the seas. The interaction between Luffy's Conquerors Haki and his Gear 5 form is still being explored, given that this form has been enough to defeat both Kaido and seemingly Kizaru. We can confidently rank Luffy's Conquerors Haki along with his overall strength near the very top of this list. Next, we have the second non-pirate to be featured, and it's the hero of the Marines and former rival to the Pirate King, Monkey D. Garp. While it was long assumed that Garp possessed Conquerors Haki due to his legendary status, it was only confirmed during the recent Egghead Island arc in his epic battle against his former protege Kuzan. Despite being past his prime, Garp was easily able to dispatch many of Blackbeard's strongest officers. His downfall came only because he willingly took a sneak attack to protect Kobe, eventually being overwhelmed by the might of Aokiji Kuzan. Garp's previous status as Goldie Roger's rival suggests that his haki was on par with the Pirate King's. This formidable strength appears to run in the family, considering the strength of Garp's son and grandson. Though his strength appears to have diminished with age, Garp still remains to be a force to be reckoned with, as in his prime there will likely be very few, if any, who would be able to surpass him. Now we move on to the strongest character ever shown in the series, Whitebeard. He was dubbed as the strongest man in the world, as well as the man who was the closest to finding the One Piece. Following the death of Goldie Roger, it was the era of Whitebeard. He was by all accounts equal to the Pirate King himself, and we had witnessed their legendary clashes during Oden's flashbacks, where the mere pressure of their Conquerors Haki prevented their blows from even connecting. By the time of the Marineford War, Whitebeard's strength had waned significantly due to age and injuries, to the point where he could no longer use Conquerors Haki. However, this did not diminish his immense power, as he had single-handedly caused massive destruction at Marineford. We do not know exactly when or how Whitebeard discovered his Conquerors Haki, but it was likely long before he had joined Rox D. Zebek's crew. Unlike most Conquerors Haki users, Whitebeard didn't possess the typical ambition for power or influence. He had no interest in the One Piece or the title of Pirate King. His goal was far more personal and humble, and it was to create a family with whom he could sail the seas. Despite Whitebeard's modest ambitions, his name had risen to legendary status, and he had become one of the most revered figures in the world of One Piece. Next, we come to a man who could easily claim the top spot as the current strongest Conquerors Haki user in the world, and this is none other than Redhead Shanks. Shanks is the earliest confirmed user of Conquerors Haki in One Piece, as he had first displayed it in order to save Luffy from the Lord of the Coast in the initial chapters of One Piece. Ever since then, his feats have only grown more and more impressive with each appearance, as he had clashed with Whitebeard using a Haki-infused blow which had split the heavens. He had intimidated Admiral Ryukogyu from miles away with his overwhelming Haki, and he had defeated both Kid and Killer with a single strike off the coast of Elbaf. Every move that Shanks makes against an opponent has been increasingly awe-inspiring. Oda provided a clear reference to Shanks' Haki strength post-time skip by stating that while Luffy knocked out 50,000 pirates during the Fishman Island arc, Shanks could have knocked out all 100,000 that were present. It's widely assumed among One Piece fans that Shanks possesses the strongest Haki in the series, and by extension he is the strongest Conquerors Haki user. This assumption is logical given that Shanks is the only Yonko without a Devil Fruit, despite his contemporaries wielding abilities which can cause earthquakes, transforming them into mythical dragons, or manipulating souls and even commanding darkness. Shanks stands equal to all of them with nothing but his sword, one arm, and his immense Haki. As Kaido stated during his fight with Luffy, only Haki can truly rule the seas. Now that Shanks has declared his intention to claim the One Piece, it will be fascinating to see if anyone's Haki can stand up to his. Now finally, after going over several different users, we've reached the outright strongest Conquerors Haki user ever shown in the series, which in my opinion is the Pirate King himself, Goldie Roger. The decision between Roger and Shanks for the top spot on this list was very close, but I believe that Roger narrowly edges it out. Roger is the character who requires the least justification for possessing Conquerors Haki. If the Pirate King didn't have the ambition and kingly qualities which were necessary to wield this ability, then possibly no one ever would. With nothing but his sword and Haki, Roger dominated the seas. His strength was so overwhelming that it solidified Kaido's belief that the pinnacle of power could only be reached through Haki. Alongside Garp, Roger overthrew the strongest pirate crew of the time, which was led by Roxy Zebek, and then he had journeyed the seas unhindered for decades. When Roger finally decided to find what lay at the end of the Grand Line, he did so unchallenged. Even when he was facing death, Roger left the world with a smile on his face and words which had ignited the next golden age of piracy. The legacy of Goldie Roger, along with his strength and mastery of Conquerors Haki, make him, in my opinion, the strongest user of this ability ever shown within One Piece. Now, I'm sure that there are numerous characters that you believe I must have missed off of this list, but that's not actually the case. So far, the only characters in the series confirmed to have Conquerors Haki are those that we've covered in this video. Everyone else, no matter how strong or prestigious they are, is still only assumed to have Conquerors Haki. This does include the likes of Akainu, Im, Blackbeard, Dragon, Mihawk, Aokiji, Roxy Zebek, and many others. It's likely only a matter of time until Oda brings them into the spotlight in order to reveal who wields this ability and who does not. If you'd like a video going through all of the characters that you think might have Conquerors Haki but haven't had it confirmed yet, then let me know by leaving a comment under this video. We've now reached the point of the video where I hand over the discussion to all of you. Let me know if you agree with my ranking for how strong each of the Conquerors Haki users are. I'd love to know all of your own personal lists and what changes you would make in comparison to my own. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of yet another pretty long ranking video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next One Piece Explained video.
If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.